Okay, you guys tell me when you're happy campers and ready to roll.
Yeah, they are.
And we'll happily roll. Okay? And you're happy, Peter?
Yeah,
okay.
It's cute.
And we're speeding away. You seem to be one of the most unlikely bands to get back together again.
Are we a band?
That's why we did it.
Oh.
What were the circumstances that brought the Jefferson Airplane back together?
Well, I just wanted to make Paul really uncomfortable. And Jack Cassidy, who's our bass player, called out and said, look, don't tell Paul, but Jack and Yorma and Paul were all playing together acoustically. And he said, we're going to play the Fillmore in San Francisco. It's in the middle of the set. Don't tell anybody you're coming. Just walk on the stage. Yorma and I will start playing White Rabbit. Just see what Paul does. So Paul still doesn't understand the joke. And I don't either. It's gotten way out of hand. Way out of hand.
It's definitely more than a joke now, right?
Yes.
The new
well,
album.
no.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, really.
It's a big joke. The new album is called Jefferson Airplane.
Odd.
And you had, yes, I know, I don't know how you came up with it. But you had many titles that you were battering around, some that needed to be battered, right? Can you tell us about some of those?
No. We just had hundreds of titles and nobody liked any of them together, which we frequently do.
Well, also, if you have hundreds of titles, you get sick of looking at them. We had two or three legal-sized single-spaced pieces of paper on the walls in the recording studio, and it was just, that's a man throwing out, it's all right.
Cut, edit, hold on.
I think it's
The toilet.
is that what it is?
Yeah, it's kind of a nifty toilet, isn't it?
It's a really loud toilet.
Industrial toilet.
Get it while we can. Well,
Anyway,
yes.
there's a bunch of stuff up on the walls in the studio, and it had dumb name after dumb name after dumb. Finally, none of them look good if you have that many names. It's got an overkill. So if
Some of them look good to everybody. I mean, but none of them looked good to everybody, if you know what I mean.
What?
I mean, everybody liked some of them, but there was no unilateral decision on anything.
And we can't avoid Jefferson Airplane, so we called it that.
It made
And
sense.
in the interest of simplicity, too. We've never had an album called Jefferson Airplane, so we figured, well, it's about time.
What was it like when you got back into the studio together again?
Chaos.
It was chaos. It's kind of different. Well, there's a certain series of events that ordinarily take place when you make a record. If it's a rock and roll band, you get together and practice. So there was me and Paul practicing for about a week and a half. Then there was a drummer, and then kind of nobody else really until we got in the studio. So it's like, I don't know, people just showed up and sort of did whatever they needed to do on arbitrary kind of ways. You know, it's nothing has changed. It wasn't exactly like that, but it's always been kind of like that, you know, whenever we make records.
Mel Brooks had an allusion to how they made the Jewish Star in a record many years ago called The 2,000-Year-Old Man, where it said like 6 guys got together in a big room with points, and they all ran together into the center of the room. In a cloud of dust and a hardy high of silver, there was a Jewish star. And we make records similarly. Or we seem to be shackled with that
We
particular
haven't
process.
come up with something quite as good as the Jewish Star yet, but we're still bashing at each other, working on it.
Bashing at each other. You're very famous for those clashes.
Friction makes sparks.
It's also verbal. I don't believe anybody's ever actually physically bashed anybody, have they? Like if you're bashed
Because we're all
or
college
me.
students.
Yeah, that's true. It's more fun to verbal.
It's more mental.
It's better to see if you can destroy the other person mentally.
Did you clash in your approaches this time?
Oh, of course. It's
Yeah.
the nature of the band. You're supposed to clash. Everybody agreed on everything. How boring would it be?
You wrote these songs apart before you knew even that you were going to be getting together.
Yeah.
Do you feel that despite that there are themes that emerged on the album?
Yeah, because we've all been married for 25 years, you know, off and on.
Accidental random
I don't
factors.
mean to other people. I mean this band kind of, you know, part of it is, I think, the same age group, same desires, seeing the same events happen and reacting to them nationally or internationally or personally. Also having the same amount of education and so forth. There's a lot of stuff, I think, that feeds into them being very similar, not sounding, because we come from completely different musical taste, but lyrically, the focus would be the same.
So you're not surprised, you weren't surprised when you found a theme running through?
Not really, no. I mean, it is, you do go, oh, isn't that nice? But it's not all that surprising. It would be if one of us was 18 and Chinese, and the other one was an 85-year-old black person from Louisiana. Another person was from France. You know, that would be very surprising if it was that similar. But our backgrounds and attitudes and sarcasm and yada yada is pretty similar.
What is that ideology then that's expressed on this album that represents Jefferson Airplane 1989?
Hope, even in the face of dire straits, including the band.
Good band.
Yeah, good band.
Tell me about the song "The Summer of Love." I know that Marty wrote it, but do you know the genesis of it, or maybe how you first heard it?
Well, I kept bugging him to write a song, because he sort of backed off writing for a long time. So when we were doing KBC, I suggested he write some songs, and that was one he came up with.
What'd you think?
I thought, when I heard the title, I went, like John Rivers, because that's the last thing we want to do. But then the song is so innocent and guileless, and maybe not pure, but pure. That's a very charming song for those who let that door open.
Yeah,
The cynical attitude will sort of take it in. Yeah.
I heard it with just Marty singing by himself on a guitar, and it's very poignant that way, I think.
Do you think that it's possible to have another Summer of Love?
No.
No.
Why?
It's like high school graduation. You know, you want to graduate from high school again? You know, it's a good time. You learned a lot, and then you go on.
We're talking about a few years ago. What stands out the most when you remember the Summer of Love, 1967?
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Freedom,
Freedom.
individual freedom. There isn't quite so much of that now on a wide basis with young people because it's more tribal. They're more like the heavy metal people looking down at the new wave people, the new wave people looking at the you know, it's just there are kind of gangs of young people. We all sort of enjoyed each other's outfits. Instead of one whole band looking the same, one person would wear an outfit. In other words, Pigpen didn't look anything like Janis, didn't look like Paul, didn't look like, none of us looked alike. And each individual wore what they sort of liked out of either history or future, or there was an enormous amount of individual freedom of expression. And that was tolerated by people. All the bands sort of liked each other. It wasn't like, we're better than them, or how come I'm not making as much money as Huey Lewis, or any of that kind of stuff. You know, it was more of a enjoyment of each other, which I kind of prefer.
Well, in the beginning, nobody was making any money anyway, so
yeah, really.
we weren't in it really to make money. It was more the sense of adventure.
Right.
And that goes for today as well. That's the only reason I think I'm doing this.
The sense of adventure.
Yeah. And
Robbing a bank would be a lot more lucrative.
I had that in my plans too.
That would definitely be adventurous.
Yeah, I want to film it, video it, and score it as well.
You know, talking about the ideology behind the album, the hope of that the band still has as a band, as individuals. Are you trying to bring like a 60s concept into the 80s?
Not really.
No.
Just trying to bring your own concept, whatever it is, there are 4 songwriters, basically. And each one is saying whatever they need to say at the moment. It can be personal or political or something bashing or poignant, and whatever you need to say. But it's not all of us saying, oh, let's get together and get that flower power back, boy, that sure was. You know, it's not, who cares?
You know, back in the 60s you had some kind of wild crowds, and there are some rumors that you kind of helped incite crowd craziness in those concerts. Is that...
Craziness. Nothing seriously wrong went wrong.
No, I didn't mean it in a bad way. I was smiling when I said it.
Well, often the crowds were more crazy than the bands. That's what was good about going to those kind of shows.
Did you help incite that?
No, we were incited by it. I mean, it's a give and take situation. It's not like an audience idolizing a band. People came to those places almost no matter who was playing there, because there was a whole social thing going on there of interaction, both serious stuff and just yaks, party. That was a real good combination. You had a chance to meet a lot of different strange people in a real strange atmosphere. The walls were moving, you know, the walls don't move anymore. And that was a thing of that time.
How do you incite the crowd now, or how do you